speaking of your family history, maybe we should talk a little more about that, starting with your great-grandfather on your father's side, Moyshe.
Yep, Moyshe Katz. He was born in Belarus, but they moved to Nikolaev in the Ukraine when he was 3. In 1903, there was a huge pogrom in Kishinev, and like the Jewish world was rocked by it. And one of the things that happens is a lot of self-defense movements start popping up. And he and a friend of his decided, they'd heard rumblings that there would be a pogrom in Nikolaev. And so he and his friend started a self-defense group. My grandfather and my great-aunt are both born in the United States. And then in the early 20s, in the 20s, they go back to Russia. I mean, to build the state of, well, actually, to build a state of Israel, not Israel. But my great-grandfather was part of expeditions to find the Jewish homeland within the USSR, that they are going to be, I mean, what becomes Azerbaijan, that they're going to build a Jewish homeland that is communist. And apparently he was in some exhibition that was checking out Siberia. But in the early 30s, there's another break within the Communist Party, and the Freiheit, which my great-grandfather was very, very involved in, which was the communist magazine in New York, newspaper in New York, the treasurer left with some money, or there was something, the Freiheit was in trouble, and my great-grandfather was sent back to the States. Now, he thought this was just going to be a year tops. It turns into 2, and my great-grandmother Esther says, I'd like to be near my husband. So she and my grandfather come back to the States. My great-aunt is still in Russia because she was in university. I'm not sure, she might have been married already, that she had a life and she wasn't going to be leaving it because the family was going to be coming back within a few years anyway. And the Iron Curtain fell. And my great-grandfather keeps trying to get back to Russia. I mean, through the war, through everything, is trying to go back, that that's where he wants to be. And members in the State Department and, like, you know, people who knew him and knew what was happening in Russia, that was not public, but they had some idea of what was happening, and they wouldn't let him. They would block him at every turn, every time he tried to go back. And apparently when Stalin's crimes, in the big Khrushchev speech, when Stalin's crimes become public, that's when he, we don't know if he withdrew from the Communist Party or if he just withdrew and stayed a member, but was no longer active in the party. That, I mean, hearing that all his friends were murdered by Stalin. And in the 60s, in 61, I think he went back to Russia, finally, and saw his daughter and had dinner with the friends of the murdered writers and culture makers, and died that night. That because he was an American citizen who died in Russia, they did an autopsy, and they said that his arteries were so clogged they couldn't believe that he had been living for 6 months. And I mean, yeah, it was just this thing that he had to do, and then he died.